live? Okay.
Well, I believe that we could have done better in the manner in which we organized the event. I would like to believe that the transition team from cabinet and all the permanent secretaries that consist of that transition team underestimated, whether unknowingly or deliberately, the response to this inauguration. I was one of those that started off very early in the morning to be part of that event. And the traffic that was there was very mismanaged. First of all, most of the roads were closed, and a lot of people could not get there on time because they had to be, redirected using other roads. And even when we got there, just to get into the stadium, driving into the stadium was a nightmare. But what was even worse was getting through the doors as you parked and then you want to get inside the stadium. I have never seen such confusion on the VIP side, where all these other dignitaries were coming through. It was like a mad rush. I think that we mishandled the proper arrangement of this event. We could have done better, and I hope that next time we are going to ensure that any transition team or any team that is organizing an event like that is a bit more professional, more deliberate. We thought that they had estimated by the interest that was generated in the nation that we were going to have a full house. Some people slept there. And so that to me is unacceptable. And I think that Cabinet Office would have done much, much better in organizing the physical preparations for the event. The other aspects of the event, went well. In terms of the programming, the events that took place, the colorfulness of the event. I think people took in a whole lot and maybe accepted the oversights because of the excitement that filled the stadium. But we could have done better. We could have done better. On the issue of the actual thing that happened, one of the things that happened during the inauguration that brought a lot of sadness to myself and of course to many Zambians is the booing of the former president. First of all, I must put it on record that that's not who we are as a people. I am aware that the previous administration, led by President Lungu, brought quite some pain in the lives of many people, including myself. I am one of those that suffered greatly at the hands of the previous administration. For 10 years, my life was in and out of jail. My own political organization was totally under assault by the Patriotic Front. I was never given a chance to come up for air. They recruited rebels and, just malefactors that constantly attacked any progress that we made. Not politically, but, in a way that was malicious, in a way that was part of hooliganism. So I was affected by their behavior and their action. However, I do not think that it is Zambian for us to boo the former president like we did there. The reason why that is not a good idea is that Zambians have got options to teach any political leader a lesson. One of those was through the ballot box. The same way that Zambians handled the previous administration and removed them from power, a great and precise punishment. So I think that if there's any kind of concern that they could have broken the law in any way at any point, we have sufficient legal systems through which these political leaders are going to be subjected to. To boo a former leader is setting a precedent which we must, as Zambians, start to remove from our cultural approach. Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, towards the end of his presidency, obviously, those of you that were there with me remember that his vehicle was pelted with tomatoes, and they tell me that even with eggs in the Independence Stadium. And I think that's where this spirit began. Dr. Chiluba, his life towards the end was a very sad one, where people distanced themselves from him, and basically it's all part of Zambians trying to express their, dislike for what happened during someone's tenure in office. But I think the whole world yesterday at inauguration were watching Zambia. They were on Zambia. We had just scored another big one as one of the leading countries on the continent of Africa, demonstrating smooth transition of leadership from one political party to another, 3 times consistently without any violence and without the former president holding back. So I think that we scored very highly, very, very highly. And that booing did not really augur too good. And I would say that even with all that I feel about the previous administration, I think that that was a wrong way to go. I think the positive thing about that is for Mr. Lungu to recognize that all that he needed to do was to do what he did. Brave himself, come out and hand over the instruments of power in the midst of great hostility in order to keep with the standing of our nation of smooth transitions. So I think that will go down in history as a positive on his side. And we salute him for that, regardless of what he did. So I thought I needed to put that clear, that booing is not part of who we are. And I think there we missed an opportunity to paint the picture of who we really are as a Zambian people to the international community. And I thought that I needed to make that absolutely clear. On the takeaway points from the inauguration, especially from the speech of President Hakainde Hichilema, it was a momentous day for us, momentous day for me, and for the movement for multi-party democracy for that matter, because there are certain facets of his speech that were almost a replica of a speech that I had made before. It brought that excitement and forward-looking that for the first time we might get our country on a solid foundation to recovery. The first thing he talked about is order, which has been our first point in our manifesto, that you cannot develop this country in the absence of order. God did absolutely nothing until we created order, because the Bible says in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, for it was without form and void. But he said, let there be light, and created what we have today. And then he created man to inhabit a system of order which he had set up. Zambia's biggest problem under the Patriotic Front is disorder, a lack of interest in having order, because corruption grows and breeds in disorder. That's why PF wanted disorder. The markets were disorderly. The bus stops were disorderly. The look in town was disorderly. Anybody can sell anywhere. Anybody can go to the toilet anywhere. Anybody can become a boss anytime. And that confusion, that's the breeding place for corruption and lack of development. So we were very happy to hear that the UPND government has said order will be the first line of approach in moving the country forward. We were also happy that he singled out no tolerance to corruption, because that is really what personally I stand for. That is the fight that we fought when I deputized President Levi Mwanawasa. We sought a zero tolerance to corruption, and we saw how the international community looked at us from a very fresh angle of trust, confidence building between us and our global partners. Once you can fight corruption, not rhetorically or politically, but in reality, the international community responds favorably in terms of support and just raising the bar and the name of our country. So I was very encouraged by his determination to talk about zero tolerance to corruption. The other takeaway that I have cherished since yesterday is the freeing of the public media, so that all of us stakeholders can have equal access and exercise our freedoms and liberties to air our views on public media. As you are aware, I'm one of the victims of not being allowed on ZNBC like many other opposition leaders, including President Hakainde Hichilema when he was with us in the opposition. We could not be allowed on ZNBC. And, you know, towards the end, not only were we not allowed, I was actually arrested, convicted in court, and sent to prison at Mwembeshi Maximum Prison for just going to ZNBC. Not even speaking or being interviewed, just for setting my feet on the grounds of ZNBC, I went to jail. That kind of intolerance, that kind of exclusion, and that kind of unprofessional conduct on the part of public media stations is something that President Hakainde said we are not going to have again. And I hope that the media houses have heard that, because it's not the new presidents who are wrong. It's these institutions who create new, bad behavior of presidents who come because they start to close in on the opponents of a sitting president and exclude them from coverage. So that was very, very good to hear. He also went further to say that never again is anyone going to be ambushed and beaten for being on radio or television, expressing their views on how they feel about a certain aspect of their governance. And so, because he himself has been a victim, I have been a victim of that, and we know how difficult that is. So we look forward to these values and virtues being exercised as we move forward. So these are issues of order and organization, and I thought that those takeaways from his speech are good enough. And our position as MMD NUHO is to support this new administration in as far as these values which we believe in, which are working on behalf of the Zambian people, as far as they stick to those things, they shall have our consistent support, because time has come for us to rebuild this country. And finally, yes, the question of my advice to the new president based on the speech that he gave. This is really now from my heart to President Hakainde Hichilema. It's good that I've already spoken to him about these matters in my meeting with him when I paid him a courtesy call when he was still president-elect. These are issues, some of them we discussed. But what I felt in that stadium of 60,000 Zambians was that that was not one tribe. That was a mixture of almost all the tribes of Zambia. The energy of expectancy scared me, because to satisfy those levels of anxieties, those levels of expectation demands caution, and also a manner in which you can interpret what this vote and mandate given to the UPND is. First of all, it is important to accept the fact that this was a very selfish vote. Zambians voted for themselves. They want to get out of their trouble, they want prosperity, they want to move forward, they want to cut off PF and start afresh. It's for them. And they felt that the UPND, and in this case, President Hakainde Hichilema, was better positioned to deliver that on their behalf. And so I think that it would be wrong for President Hakainde Hichilema and the UPND to misread that, because the Zambian people actually, unfortunately, expect the change now. They expect by next week the jobs are going to be made available. They expect that meal will go down. They expect that fuel costs will go down. They expect that there will be medicine in hospital. They expect that the dollar, the kwacha will be strengthened within this next few days. So what does that mean? It means that the UPND must get on the platform and clarify this point, that this destruction that has taken place to this country has taken 10 years to destroy this nation. There is no way, even with all the goodwill and the magic that UPND can have, that they can heal this very sick patient of Zambia in 1 month, or 2 months, or 3 months. And UPND needs to be clear about this. If they raise these expectations to the extent that they give the impression that they are coming in and solving all the problems, the rebellion from the same Zambians who were clapping could be harsher than what we saw against the Patriotic Front and Mr. Lungu. And my advice, if you ask me according to your question, what is my advice to President HH? President HH must put a cabinet in place that is going to invoke confidence and trust, that is going to make every Zambian feel part of this administration. That's point number one. Point number two, President HH must make sure that his team is eloquent enough, clear enough, intelligent enough to explain to the Zambian people on a daily basis, if need be, to let them understand that the changes that are going to be brought are not going to be brought overnight for these reasons. And the Zambians must become part of this process of bringing this change about. This is my advice to my colleague, now the President of the Republic of Zambia. Some of this I shared with him in person, but it is important to put it on record that there are high expectations from Zambian people who have gone through such a difficult 10 years. Now you saw the energy in that stadium, and that energy can go this way or that way, up or down, depending on how the UPND handles that energy. I believe right now as I speak, Zambians are many Zambians, especially the youth, are totally behind this administration to make it work, including ourselves who are in the opposition. We feel that the issues touched on by the new president are issues we are concerned about. And for me to criticize President Hakainde Hichilema now, before he fails in anything, it will be hypocritical, because I would be doing exactly the same thing that he announced yesterday during the inauguration. So to all Zambians, I continue to say, let's keep our eyes on the fact that we have a new government in place. We will do the best we can to support this government as long as they remain on the side of the Zambian people. Because that's why we are here, the Zambian people, to speak for them and to ensure that we deliver what they are looking for. Prosperity, not only for a group, but prosperity for all.